Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Air Raid Hour. I'm still hearing stuff in the background of my, I don't know, am I having some weird audio over there?
You sound good, but there's like
I had my YouTube open on my
double
other
audio
computer
going.
there.
Yeah, there you go.
I had
There
my
you go. I was
YouTube open
like,
on my other computer. I had no idea. So I'm rocking
at
two
you.
computers tonight because I got my free agent spreadsheet and I accidentally had our YouTube page open as well. So that's interesting. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me, as always, on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. Together, we are the Bills guys. This is the Air Raid Hour presented by the Cover One Sports Network. And man, we are getting into we're just getting into the thick of the offseason. I said yesterday, the reason why the XFL will always be better than the USFL is that if the XFL was still a league and they were returning this offseason, we would have had football yesterday.
Yeah,
now, the USFL draft is tomorrow. There's no football. And I'm just so lost. I mean, the only Bills news today was they hired a safeties coach. So Bobby Babich Jr. is now the linebackers coach, and a guy named Jalon Finner is now our safeties coach, and he was previously the safeties coach at Texas A&M Commerce. So that is the Bills news to really get you through today. So what, 2 hours breaking down Jalon Finner? Like, what is that what we're going to do today?
No. I mean, this is these shows that we have upcoming. This Monday and Thursday shows are two of my favorite that we do all year. Really diving into the primer of free agency. We're doing offense tonight. These are a couple of my favorite shows. Like this is really now the point where I can start getting closure on the 2021 season. Like full bore ahead. We're on to free agency. Got an exciting couple weeks coming up. We're going to talk to you about a lot of, realistic options tonight that maybe you hadn't considered. And we're gonna get in deep tonight with a lot of options here, and we're gonna break it up. So why don't you lay it out how we're gonna do this tonight?
Yeah. So tonight, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to walk through position by position on offense. So we're going to start at quarterback, and we're going to work our way to running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive tackle, and then interior offensive line. And what we're going to do is we're sort of going to have a conversation about the free agents that we like or that we think might have ties to the Bills or the Bills might be interested in at each position. And we'll talk about money. We'll talk about what role these players could fill, the positives and negatives of these players. 9 times out of 10, a player hits free agency because there's something wrong with them, right? Their team might not have wanted them back for a certain reason. So we're going to break down some of the positives and negatives, what role they fill, what player they could be replacing. Like I know when we get to wide receiver, it's like, hey, if we lose Isaiah McKenzie, people might not be thinking about this right now because they all want Isaiah McKenzie back, but who can fill the role of a gadget guy that we can go out and get in free agency? So we're going to be going position by position, breaking that down. And then at the end, me and you are going to do a little bit of a snake draft where we're each going to get to pick one player from each position in a snake draft style format. And then we're going to post that graphic on social media and see who the king of snake draft offensive free agency is here at the Air Raid Hour. But before we get started position by position, this is related to what we're doing today. I got a Jabroni of the week.
Jabroni, you are 3 seconds away. And The Rock means 3 seconds away from The Rock to lay the smackdown on your candy ass.
Yeah, I can't stop you though. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
All right. So before I get started, I want to preface this by saying that everyone's allowed to enjoy whatever it is they want to enjoy. What's that Bruce Nolan comment? Everybody just let people enjoy what they enjoy.
Let people.
I'm okay with that. Let people like what they like. And if you're someone who likes this, I'm game. But for me, what's really the jabronis out there from my perspective this week, I just don't understand why anyone is out there wasting their time talking about Christian McCaffrey trades or Alvin Kamara trades or Saquon Barkley trades. I understand that the Buffalo Bills could swing and make a huge move in free agency or could make a big trade this offseason. I understand that they can do that. And it's cool to think about, but really like devoting more than like 2-3 minutes to that is really that all I'm willing as a content creator to do right now. I would rather just react to that if it happens than sit here and try to predict it's going to happen or lay out a foundation for it to happen, because there's just so many things that have to go into those things occurring. Both teams wanting to trade the players, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you're out there and that's the kind of stuff you're into, we'll touch on some of that stuff today. We might talk about hey, if we can't get anyone in free agency, who are some trade targets we like? Oh, hey, we'll make a swing at somebody. We're going to hit at that today. But I think for the most part, that is more of a reaction thing. And today it's going to be more about what are some realistic options for the Buffalo Bills.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 100% agree. And that's where I kind of was hinting at that with the comments I was making, right? We're going to look into some guys that maybe you are familiar with, or maybe you're not, but maybe to just get on your radar, because we hear about the same guys over and over again, the top tier guys, because those are the flashy guys and they're fun to talk about in trades and things. But in reality, when you start thinking about free agents that the Bills have signed that have been of note really and have contributed to this franchise, yes, guys like Micah Hyde were not unknowns, but they were mid-tier type guys. Jordan Poyer was pretty much an unknown when he signed with the Buffalo Bills. Guys like John Feliciano, who in his first year played well, were cast-offs from the Raiders, right? So these are the types of players that we need to think about, especially given that as of right now, February 21st, the Bills only have about $2-3 million in cap space. Now I know that's going to change, but we have to be realistic with some of these expectations.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not to say that these things aren't going to happen, right? And if they do happen, we will jump for joy. If we trade for Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara or Saquon Barkley or Michael Thomas, Amari Cooper is someone you could have a conversation about possibly being available with Dallas needing some cap space. You look at in free agency, guys like Brennan Scherf. These are all conversations that I would rather just react to those than sit here and really waste time prognosticating those things. It's just not something I think this show is about. So let's get into the conversation and let's start with quarterbacks. So to me at quarterback, you start with to me, there's one of two ways the Buffalo Bills can go, right? You can go with the musical chairs approach and you can wait a week or two into free agency. Kind of I don't know if we waited a week or two into free agency, but we waited a while before we went out and we signed AJ McCarron. He was what was left a couple of years ago. And I think AJ McCarron might be a bad example because that was just a really weak free agency class. But the Buffalo Bills waited and waited and waited, and then they got a guy on a relatively cheap deal that was just the last man standing. So the musical chair sort of approach is one approach the Buffalo Bills could take to free agency. The other approach is the approach that they took last year. They went out and they found their guy. They communicated with that guy. And who would have guessed that Mitch Trubisky would have been the first free agent the Buffalo Bills signed last year?
Right.
That's crazy to me. So there's the musical chairs approach. And then there's the go get your guy approach. What do you think the Buffalo Bills are going to do? And before we do, Michael K., thank you for coming in with the super chat. Always appreciate our super chatters. If you have any comments, throw a comment in there. We'd be happy to get your comment up here on the screen as well. But talking about quarterbacks, people in the comment section, do you want to go with the musical chairs approach? Is there a certain guy you think the Buffalo Bills should be honing in on? And Dave, what do you think here?
If I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm sitting here looking at the free agent market and the free agent quarterbacks that are going to become available, right? You've got guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick, Andy Dalton, Cam Newton, Tyrod Taylor, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, Mariota. And I'm saying, okay, there's probably a handful of those guys who feel like they could join a team and potentially start or at least push to start for a team. So if I'm the Buffalo Bills, what I do is I go to Mitch Trubisky's agent and I say, hey, look around the league. You didn't play last year, which was great. We didn't need you to play. You came here to rehabilitate your image, and you might not have had the chance to do that because you didn't get to play. But there are about 6 to 8 guys maybe that are going to be hitting free agency that other teams may be willing to give a chance to give an opportunity to compete for a starting job. I wouldn't say this to him, but in my head, I'd be like, I don't know if you're one of those guys. So why don't you come back here again, be our backup for another year for $3 million or whatever, and stick with us. We'll be willing to give you $3 million. Might be more than you could get if you test in the market. Might not be, but we've got $3 million lined up for you to be the backup quarterback again and that would be my preferred scenario, having Mitchell back,
Mhm.
knowing that he's been in the system, knowing that he's been sort of with Josh Allen this last year. And I wouldn't want the musical chairs in this
Mhm.
scenario because I want the best chance possible. And I think Mitchell Trubisky gives you the perfect blend of familiarity with what the Bills want to
Mhm.
do, plus some upside, right? He's been a starter in the league. So, like, I think he gives you a little bit of both. And while he might not necessarily give you, let's say, the upside, and he might not necessarily give you like
Mhm.
the ceiling maybe that a Mariota or a Fitzpatrick or a Dalton, which isn't that high of a ceiling, by the way.
Yeah.
He can go toe to toe with any of those guys on any given week. So that's my preference. It'll be interesting to
Mhm.
see if the Bills have that same thought process.
We got Michael Katarski coming to the super chat again saying, I'll be tuning in on the pod tomorrow morning at work. Just wanted to show some love. Thank you, Michael. Super appreciate that. And I mean, there's a reason why, looking at this free agency class, right? There's a reason why there are reports going around that the Washington Commanders are going to trade Chase Young for a semi-relevant quarterback. Like that's the rumor that's sort of been circulating on social media lately. So I don't know, maybe sign Mitch to a really team-friendly deal and then trade him to the Commanders for Chase Young. Does that sound? I'm just kidding. But I don't know, man. Like I look around the league and I see all of the quarterback vacancies, and I think Mitchell Trubisky falls into that musical chairs category. I
Yeah.
don't know if, and again, you have that 3-day tampering period, so anything can happen in that 3-day tampering period. But I look at it like when I tiered the quarterbacks in free agency, the top 3 guys on my list who I think could potentially start for a team next year were Jameis Winston, who's looking good rehabbing from that knee injury, Marcus Mariota, who I feel like still gets a lot of love around the league. Oakland's had some trade offers for him, etc. Just like the Bills also had some trade offers for Mitch Trubisky. So I think Trubisky, Mariota, and Jameis Winston are 1, 2, 3 on my list
Yeah.
of the hottest names that are going to be on the quarterback market. And I just don't know. I think there's going to be a team out there that's going to give Mitch Trubisky a shot.
Yeah.
So then the question was, okay, do you wait for the other tier to sort of fill out? Andy Dalton, Teddy Bridgewater, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett. Because if you wait for that to play out and they all land somewhere and they all find a home, then you're stuck with Joe Flacco, Colt McCoy, Blaine Gabbert, Mike Glennon, Geno Smith, Trevor Siemian, etc. That's why I feel like you take one of these quarterbacks, and I'm going to throw Brandon Allen from the Bengals into that mix as well. Brandon Allen, Jacoby Brissett, Tyrod Taylor, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton. I feel like you hone in on one of those guys during the legal tampering period. Matt Barkley is one of those bottom tier options as well. I feel like you hone in on one of those guys in the legal tampering period, and you really try to get a deal done with them in the $3 to $5 million 1-year deal type of range. I think a guy like Brandon Allen is young enough, and even Jacoby Brissett is young enough where maybe you could even coax them into a 2 or a 3-year deal. I had some misgivings about Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like I worry that maybe he's too much of an alpha and you're going to have 2 alphas in that room. But I went in and I did some digging, and like Josh Allen and Ryan Fitzpatrick have played golf before. They seem like they're buddies. So if Fitzpatrick is willing to finally accept the fact that he's maybe not a starting quarterback in the NFL last year, still wants to collect one more paycheck, wants to come back to Buffalo, et cetera, all these things that people talk about. I think that Fitzpatrick is an option. The 2 I hone in on the most are Teddy Bridgewater and Jacoby Brissett. I think Bridgewater has that relationship with Joe Brady. Jacoby Brissett is that sort of moderately priced quarterback that you might be able to get on a longer term deal. And yeah, he can continue his AFC East tour. Is there any quarterback outside of Mitch Trubisky that you would like to see the Buffalo Bills hone in on as maybe this year's Trubisky, or the guy that they try to get, boom, first day of free agency? Is there any quarterback outside of Mitch Trubisky on that list for you?
Yeah, and so I think I'm with you in the sense that
Mhm.
if they try to get Mitch Trubisky back and he's not back, I would definitely kind of try to pounce on one of these other middle tier guys. I don't really want to put my
Mhm.
season in the balance of a guy like Trevor Siemian. Like that's just not in my interest, right? I think the Bills are at the point where they really need to have a competent backup. So for me, it comes down to Bridgewater, who made $4.4 million last year, so he's not going to make that much again, I don't think in 2022. So I like seeing that from a dollar standpoint. Teddy Bridgewater made $4.4 million last year. Kind of say be a backup, but he did spot start, here and there. I don't think he's going to get more than $3-4 million in 2022. So I'd be kind of comfortable with that. Jacoby Brissett is a guy I think I mentioned maybe a couple of weeks ago that I kind of liked. Stylistically, not really the same, not that similar to Josh Allen, but I do like his story, and I do like that he's kind of had that sort of story that goes along with his sort of rise into the NFL. We all know about how he kind of had that relationship with Parcells, and he's obviously an NC State guy, so I'm going to support Jacoby Brissett in that regard. The other guy that really, I guess, I would maybe consider to be, in that category would be the guy that you'd probably have to trade for, and that's Kyle Allen. And I know we're talking free agents here, but
the RFA market is interesting though. So Kyle Allen from the Commanders, Mike White from the Jets, and Josh Rosen of the Falcons are all RFAs. And as we saw with the Bills last year, there's no guarantee that those guys get tendered. So all three of these RFAs, Mike White, Kyle Allen, Josh Rosen, could hit the UFA market.
And I'll say this:
possibilities.
If Kyle Allen does hit the UFA market, he might vault to my number one option over Bridgewater and over, because I think Kyle Allen.
He's my number two. He's my number two behind Mitch Trubisky.
And the reason I say that is because I think you could sign Kyle Allen to a 2-3 year deal.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're like Teddy Bridgewater is going to sign a 1 year deal.
Yep.
Right. And Jacoby Brissett maybe will sign a 2 year deal. Maybe. Right. Fitzpatrick signing a 1 year deal. Ryan Fitzpatrick signed a 1 year deal. Kyle Allen to me is intriguing as like a 2-3 year guy as a backup. And then all of a sudden you don't have to worry about this backup position for a couple years. So that he would kind of vault to the top of my list if he did become a UFA.
And we got Scotty Monahan coming in here saying Teddy B and Brissett were terrible last year. These guys are all terrible. Let's just be real here. Yeah. All of these guys are bad, like fundamentally bad. And that's why we were joking earlier that the Washington Commanders are willing to trade possibly Chase Young for a franchise quarterback because these guys are all really bad. But you look in each situation, right? Teddy Bridgewater didn't do horribly when he was with Joe Brady 2 years ago. He was also literally like he had a scoop of vanilla ice cream and Pat Shurmur calling his plays in Denver last year. Jacoby Brissett had a team that couldn't pick their offensive coordinator until like a day before the season started in Miami as his offensive coordinator last year. So it's not exactly like some of these guys were in the best of situations. So knock on wood, if Josh Allen maybe gets hurt, gets a concussion, these guys have to come in and finish a game. You want a guy who's probably been there and done this in this league to come in. You don't want a rookie to come in the middle of a football game to get his first ever NFL throw when Josh Allen has to leave because he got knocked in the noggin, right? Like you're going to want a guy who's been there, done that, who's going to be able to step in cold. If Josh Allen has to miss 2 or 3 weeks, if Josh Allen has to miss the whole season, like, fuck, it's over. Like it's done with. Maybe we could be a fringe playoff team. If we can get a guy of like Trubisky's caliber, but Super Bowl, no, bye-bye. So, I mean, to me, it's all about just trying to find someone who, if they're called upon in a very small situation, can find some success, right? And maybe complete the football game and win us the football game or win us a game. The Cardinals this year are a great example, right? Colt McCoy sucks. Like he's not good. When he came in, I think he went 2-1 as the backup when Kyler Murray was out. Like he did what he had to do to win some football games. The defense stepped up. They ran the ball more, et cetera, et cetera. But like Colt McCoy went in there. He didn't puke all over himself. Right? You see other teams' backup quarterbacks go in there and they puke all over themselves and their season is over. I think Kyle Allen would be the perfect example of a guy who I've just seen not puke all over himself in the National Football League.
I mean, it's hard enough for every team to find a starting caliber quarterback. So like we're talking about like another, like you're talking about 64 quarterbacks now instead of 32 in the end. Like it's not great. Like it's not great. Like we know we're basically saying like what situation could we survive a few games with Josh Allen being out and not miss the playoffs? That's essentially what we're saying here. Because if this happened in the playoffs, the season's pretty much over. Like what what guy could potentially bridge the gap for us to where maybe the rest of the team could cover up some of their deficiencies and we could sneak a win or two. I think that's all we're saying.
And Edward Gibson comes in and says, did Trubisky really want to play for another Chicago type organization again? What other organizations going to give him a chance to be a starting quarterback again, right? Like, this guy's still mid-20s, right? He's not going to, I don't think Mitch's aspirations to be a starting NFL quarterback are over with. I don't think he's conceded that he's the backup. I think he wanted a year to get his head right. I think he wanted a year to reset. And I think that's why he came to Buffalo, because he wanted to see what a good organization looked like. And he just wanted to sort of reset his career and relax. I don't think that was a permanent thing there. Before we head over to running backs, I just still have a weird feeling about Joe Flacco. I don't know what it is.
You've had that feeling for a while, actually. You have.
Every time Joe Flacco has played ever since he left the Ravens, like, he's another guy who hasn't puked all over himself. When he played with the Eagles, he didn't puke all over himself. When he came in and played for the Jets last year, he didn't puke all over himself. Now he got himself.
That man is a statue. That man is a statue.
Oh, he's a statue. But he's not afraid to push the ball down the field. No. A lot of these guys, Colt McCoy, dink, dunk. Teddy Bridgewater, dink, dunk. Joe Flacco is one of those few backup quarterbacks who's willing to push the ball down the field. I know that he's done, but like, I just have there's no science behind it. I just have this weird feeling.
It's a gut feeling. Yeah.
I think Mitch Trubisky would be kind of good with the Colts. That's a good fit for him. They're so fucked as an organization. Oh my God. Carson Wentz could come here as a backup. He could be this year's Mitch. That was another name that was thrown out there earlier. Before we transition to running back, for anyone who has seen it, I've linked my free agent spreadsheet into the comment section here, or not in the comment section, but into the description of this YouTube show. I also linked it on Twitter. And in it, I tier the free agents, and I tier them in 4 categories. I tier them high, I tier them mid-tier, I mid-tier them low, and I mid-tier them bargain. To me, a high-tier free agent is anyone who's going to be asking for like $7+ million. To me, that would be a high-tier free agent. Low-tier free agent would be someone between 4 and 6.9 million. And then a low free agent would be anyone you could probably get for under $4 million. Because in free agency, that's pretty cheap. Anyone you can get for under $4 million. If you see some of the contracts that get thrown around, and bargain guys are like the Matt Breidas of the world that you could probably get for like nothing. So like, you'll see my quarterbacks, Matt Barkley is the bargain, right? Not because I think he's a bargain, but because you can get him for like $800K probably. So let's now, if you were looking at the spreadsheet, I just wanted you to have an understanding of that. And I also want you guys to have an understanding that we're probably not going to talk about the high guys a lot on this show. Right. Devontae Adams is probably not going to come up in the show after this sentence. Brandon Scherf is probably not going to come up after this sentence. Orlando Brown, not going to come up after this sentence. A lot of the upper echelon tight ends are probably not going to come up after this sentence. But I do still have some high guys on my spreadsheet. And 2 of the high guys that I have on my spreadsheet are Leonard Fournette and Melvin Gordon. And I sort of want to have a conversation, because if you look at the running back position, the faith in Singletary is what's going to drive your approach this offseason. And you also need to have in mind that Devin Singletary is going into a contract year, by the way. But faith in Devin Singletary is going to drive your approach. For me, I'm looking for a guy to complement Devin Singletary. That's my personal taste. And I think that's your personal taste as well. But I also want to throw out a scenario where maybe that's not the Buffalo Bills' taste. Maybe the Buffalo Bills want to swing for a running back in free agency. That could be something that the Buffalo Bills are interested in. Oh, we're just going to run our offensive line back. We're going to tender Ryan Bates. We're going to bring him back. We're going to rework Darrell Williams' contract. We're going to sign a couple of low tier free agents as depth. We're going to draft a few guys. Our offensive line is set. We like our skill position guys. The issue we had on our team last year was we didn't have an alpha running back. And maybe they go out and they try to offer playoff Leonard Fournette some money, or Melvin Gordon some money. Now, these guys are higher tier free agents. They're probably going to get $6 to $8 million on average AAV, but the Buffalo Bills can still make it work. Like, they can give Leonard Fournette a 2-year deal where he makes $6 million the first year, and then he makes like $8 million the second year, but there's an easy out after the first year. So it looks like he's making more money than he is. Same with Melvin Gordon. You could probably get Melvin Gordon for like $4 million in the first year, make his contract the second year like $8 million, but get out of it with like a $1 or $2 million dead cap hit if it doesn't work out or pan out for you. So there are ways for the Buffalo Bills to chase some of the finger quote whales in the free agent market, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon. I just don't know if they're going to be interested in doing that.
Yeah, and I like Melvin Gordon, the player, but the more I looked at the other options available at running back in free agency, the more I cooled on kind of the thought of going after like a Melvin Gordon or a playoff Lenny, or honestly, some people are not going to like this, but even the thought of going after a guy like Cordero Patterson because of the volume of what I consider to be nice fits for the Bills, and as compliments to Devin Singletary, right? So that's the mindset I'm taking, is that he's going to be sort of your 1A or whatever you want to call it, and then let's find a guy that can complement him in free agency. And that way, again, you're not spending a ton of money, and it opens you up for the draft to still go after a running back if you want to.
And Claude Puig comes in and says, Judge, define complement. Are you looking for speed, power runner between the tackles? I don't think the Buffalo Bills have given up on Zach Moss yet. I think Zach Moss is going to be clearly in contention to get snaps at running back for the Buffalo Bills next season. I think he's your power runner. When I say complement, like the free agent that's number one on my list with a bullet is J.D. McKissic from the Washington Commanders. Third down back, right? Great receiver out of the backfield, can pass protect, shifty runner. You have Devin Singletary on first and second down. You got J.D. McKissic on third down. You have Zach Moss, break glass in case of emergency. Like that's what your backfield would look like if you don't draft a guy. So to me, that's like the lower tier free agent. You could probably get J.D. McKissic for, 2 years, $5 million, 1 year, 2.5, $3 million. Like you could probably get J.D. McKissic for a rather low deal. Now, there are other teams that might want J.D. McKissic for the same role, and he might choose to go to another team. But I think if J.D. McKissic hits the free agent market, Buffalo becomes a very appealing team to him. And he might even be willing to take less money to come to Buffalo, knowing what Buffalo can achieve. But there are a ton of running backs out there. So I want to get started with you and people in the comment section. I know most of us probably want to draft a running back, but if the Buffalo Bills were to pursue a running back in free agency, where would you go? Dave, I'm going to start with you. Are there any like mid-tier guys that the Buffalo Bills might throw some money at that you're interested in, or is it mostly just cellar dwellers for you?
It's not all cellar dwellers. I do like McKissic, and I wouldn't consider him a cellar dweller. They're the San Fran guys. I mean, I know you have like an eye on Mostert. I like Jeff Wilson as well. But I'll tell you a guy that kind of stood out to me as I was kind of combing through. Guys has made multiple stops, who fits well in his own scheme, and who is actually a really good pass protector. So could be a really nice third down running back for you. And to me, that's Damian Williams. Played in Chicago last year, filled in nicely for Monty while he was injured. Can run, can catch. He's a really good pass blocker, rated as one of the best pass blocking running backs per PFF last year. And he's comfortable in what appears to be, at least based on the personnel and coaching staff with Cromer, likely to lean towards more of that zone scheme. Damian Williams is really comfortable in that. Chicago running that with Matt Nagy. So I like Damian Williams as a mid-tier guy. He's going to be entering his, age 30 season. So he's up there, but he's a guy I think you could be considering in the same kind of vein as a J.D. McKissic, a third down type of running back who can catch. He can run actually a little bit probably better than McKissic as well, and he's a good pass blocker. So I like Damian Williams as a mid-tier guy. You mentioned McKissic. Jerick McKinnon as another guy that I have on my list as a mid-tier guy who, look, I mentioned Darrell Williams before from Kansas City, but the more I kind of thought about it, the more I kind of felt like maybe McKinnon was the better fit for the Bills. Just scheme-wise, we know he's played in Minnesota and in San Francisco in those zone schemes. He actually looked like he was playing pretty well in the playoffs for the Chiefs. They were counting on him a lot. And so, outside of McKissic, Damian Williams and McKinnon were two guys that kind of appealed to me.
And Chris Shanky comes in and says, does Mostert make sense with Aaron Cromer as the offensive line coach? Yeah, because it's looking like the Buffalo Bills, at least it looks like on the surface, could be moving towards, again, going back to that zone blocking.
I like Jeff Wilson more than Mostert personally, but
to me, he's more of a power guy. So he's a power guy, which is
I know, but I don't have as much
I'm looking for.
Yeah. I don't have as much faith in Zach Moss, maybe.
Yeah. So. Tariq Cohen's interesting. I think he's still under contract, but if he were to get out of that contract or become a trade candidate, interesting to see how he comes back from that injury. I think he tore an ACL. He's an interesting name. Yeah, on my low list of free agent tiers, I had J.D. McKissic, great receiver out of the backfield, shifty runner, great in pass pro, third down back. I had Jerick McKinnon listed. So it's Devin Singletary on first and second down. Then it might be Jerick McKinnon or J.D. McKissic. Raheem Mostert is a good one-cut downhill runner with elite speed when he's healthy, plays teams. Not exactly the greatest in pass protection. So that wouldn't leave Devin Singletary. It seems to me like Mostert would be more of like a 1B and a 1A with Devin Singletary as more than a clearly defined role. Like if it's McKissic or McKinnon, clearly defined role, third down back.
Yep.
Even Damian Williams, third down back. If it's Raheem Mostert, now it's not so clearly defined. It's kind of like hot hand.
And that's the
same with Marlon Mack, who is also mentioned there. Speed, explosiveness, a lot of potential, but not much of a factor in the passing game. Nor is he that great of a pass blocker.
And one of the things, and I'm glad you just mentioned that, because one of the things when I was scouring for these mid-tier guys was I really checked on their pass blocking grades. I wanted a guy who can pass block on third downs and isn't going to be someone that you have to really worry about from a protection standpoint. Because let's be real, like, how many times is that third down back going to actually get handed the rock in this Bills offense? Not very often. Pass protection is going to be huge for that back, and the ability to catch the ball is going to be huge. And so to me, I really honed in on guys that were good pass blockers, and those guys, Damian Williams, Jerick McKinnon, they're very good pass blocking third down backs. So, and I'm with you on that.
Chris Jenke comes in and says, do you think Cordarrelle Patterson's the pipe dream at this point? And I put that up there. I don't, he's on my list of mid-tier guys. I don't think it's a pipe dream. Could there be a team that like throws the bank at Cordarrelle Patterson based on what he did last year? Yes. I think you could probably get Cordarrelle Patterson for $6 million. He's a guy towards the back half of his career. Maybe he takes a discount to come to Buffalo. You saw the way he interacted with some of those Buffalo Bills players when they were sending wings to the Atlanta Falcons hotel room the night before the game. He's got, it seems like, a really good relationship with some Buffalo Bills players. And when your team is as good as the Buffalo Bills are, sometimes guys want to come play for you. And I understand that you can't bank on that all the time, but Cordarrelle Patterson is a guy who you might be willing to invest $6 to $8 million in, because not only is he a third down back, he's also a slot receiver, and he's also a gadget guy, and he can also return kicks and punts. So like, there's so many things you can do with him. Is he a jack of all trades, master of none? Yes, but he's a jack of a lot of trades, and he's pretty good at some of those trades. So to me, just a natural playmaker like that in the Buffalo Bills offense, a guy who can do what he does with the ball in his hands, that might help your yak problem. I understand that there's that conversation where the yak problem might be more scheme than player, but Cordarrelle Patterson might be able to help your yak problem if Aaron Cromer can dial up some screen packages for a guy like Cordarrelle Patterson. I think he'd be squarely on the Bills' radar, and I think they'd be foolish not to make the call and consider adding him to this offense.
Yeah, I just wonder is $6 million, like, he's older, right? He's in his mid-30s already, so it's like, is he gonna just be looking for that last payday, or is he gonna really be looking for that ring? And like, these types of things can go either way. He could be looking for that ring at this point, right? And he may be willing to take $6 million. He's made a decent amount of money in his career, so we will see.
Yeah, he's 30 years old right now, so he's 30. He's 30 on March 17th, which means he'll be 31 heading into next season. But yeah, Ron Beck mentions Kaiir Williams. There's a lot of good running backs in the draft, but that's another question you got to have. Like, that's a conversation you got to have if you're the Bills. Like, if you're the Buffalo Bills, do you want to risk just Devin Singletary and Zach Moss being your only running backs heading into the draft? It's kind of what sucks about the draft being, after free agency and not before free agency. If it was before free agency and a really good player fell in your lap, you wouldn't have to worry about going and talking about a Cordarrelle Patterson or Jerick McKinnon or a J.D. McKissic. A couple of people that mentioned Ronald Jones. We had a conversation about Ronald Jones a couple of shows ago. He's a guy, to me, he just blends in kind of with Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. I'm just kind of looking for traits and something that's different to sort of blend into the room. Because again, it's tough to find an alpha who's going to come in and just take over the room. James Conner and Chase Edmonds were two other guys I had on my list. But again, that's a 50-50 split with Singletary. That's not a defined role for guys like James Conner and Chase Edmonds. And you're probably going to have to pay upwards of $4 to $6 million AAV for those guys. Spin comes in and says Boston Scott's a restricted free agent. Again, there was a couple. Ernest Johnson's another restricted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to like, does the team tender them? We don't know. I don't know the specific salary cap situation of the Eagles or of the Browns or what's going on in that organization, et cetera, et cetera. But hey, if in the news 2 weeks from now, Boston Scott not tendered by the Philadelphia Eagles, Boston Scott's right up there with J.D. McKissick and Jerick McKinnon as sort of that third down type of back. Like he would fit in comfortably in that situation. Speaking of third down back, I got one more free agent on the running backs. People were kind of roasting me a little bit for this on Twitter, but it seems like every year for the last like 10 years, and that's sarcasm because he hasn't been in the league that long. I want this guy in free agency, and the Buffalo Bills never go get him. Duke Johnson. He was waived from the Texans earlier this year. The Miami Dolphins picked him up, and in 5 games, he had 71 carries for 330 yards, 4.6 yards per carry, and 3 touchdowns. He added 4 catches for 41 yards. Third down back, good in the screen game, can pass protect, etc. He still got some wiggle. He still got some juice. Duke Johnson's a guy that he could be this year's Matt Breida. I really like Duke Johnson.
I've always liked Duke Johnson as a player.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought with the Browns they used him appropriately, and he kind of bounced around. And I kind of felt bad for him because I feel like when he got his chance with the Texans, not this year, but last year, he actually showed pretty well. And it's just one of those weird things that like he seems to be like a guy with a lot of talent, but he just never seems to be able to find the right fit for himself long term. And I don't know. He's at that point now in his career where he probably has to just try to find the best fit. And maybe that would be the Bills. You never know. So it could be interesting.
We got Deontay Foreman listed, Sonny Michel listed. I mean, the list is 35 dudes long. If there's anyone wants to talk about, you could throw them in the comment section. Like I said, like Deontay Foreman, to me, I think the Bills are just going to roll with Zach Moss as their power back. I don't envision a guy like Deontay Foreman being chased. Sonny Michel kind of just like blends into me sort of with what we already have. So I was looking for the traits. Justin Jackson's a guy. I know Kendall likes Justin Jackson, and he was talking
he doesn't do it for me.
Justin Jackson, he doesn't do it for me either. History of injuries.
He's not a great pass protector.
Yeah, not a great pass protector. He's just a dude. Like, I mean, maybe like after the draft, if we don't get anyone, you can get him for a Matt Breida type of deal, and he can be like the RB3, just break glass in case of emergency. But Justin Jackson just doesn't do it for me. Jeff Wilson Jr., we sort of mentioned a little bit before. He's another good one. Just any San Francisco, anyone that Kyle Shanahan at one point thought was good enough for his team is good enough for my team.
Good enough for me. Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about scrap heap, because like, hey, the Bills and the Chiefs both tried to resurrect the 49er. And the Chiefs, it took them to the playoffs.
They did.
Like, if you look at Jerick McKinnon's regular season stats, it wasn't until the last week of the season that he really even had a chance. And then in the playoffs, he popped off, right? So Matt Breida had like a game or two in the regular season where he popped off, but it didn't develop when it counted later on in the season towards the playoffs. So, super interesting there. Just a ton of names. Devin Singletary for me is number one. I would just look for that pass catching back, pass blocking back to go along with him and Zach Moss. All right. That brings us on to wide receiver now. And before we get into sort of what wide receivers we're interested in, I want to have a conversation about targets, right? Target share. Because I posted a tweet on Twitter today where, it sort of came out that the Texans are going to be looking to shop a couple of their players, Deshaun Watson, Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Cooks, who's still a relatively young player, 28 years old, 2 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Like, he's still a very good wide receiver in the league, inside, outside flex. I really like Brandon Cooks. So I sort of just tweeted out like, hey, would people out there in the social media world be interested in Brandon Cooks? What would you be willing to give up for him? And what would an extension look like for a Brandon Cooks? And I would say a loud majority of people in the comment section were telling me no more guys, like big name guys, no more name guys. Gabriel Davis is the number 2 guy. Gabriel Davis is the number 2. They don't want, I think people are so still like taken aback by Emmanuel Sanders taking away all of Gabriel Davis's targets. I don't think it's going to be like that this year if we bring in a guy like Brandon Cooks. If the Buffalo Bills do decide to make a move for a name wide receiver, a Brandon Cooks, a Christian Kirk, who we're going to talk about in a moment, if they go out and chase a name wide receiver, chances are, in order to pay for that name wide receiver, they're also going to let Cole Beasley go, and they're not going to bring Emmanuel Sanders back, which is highly unlikely anyway. If you combine Gabriel Davis, Emmanuel Sanders, and Cole Beasley's targets last year, that's 247 targets. So if you get rid of Cole Beasley, if you get rid of Emmanuel Sanders, and you go chase a guy like Brandon Cooks or Christian Kirk, that's now 247 targets that you can divvy up between Gabriel Davis and whomever is manning the slot, who might have some outside versatility. And then you can throw another 30, 40 targets at whatever guy you draft to come in and be your wide receiver 4, or it could even be like an Isaiah McKenzie, right? So to me, just because people are saying names like Christian Kirk or Brandon Cooks or draft a wide receiver in the first round shouldn't scare people away from the concept of Gabriel Davis not getting his.
Yep, I agree. I 100% agree. I mean, this offense is capable of supporting 3 to sometimes 4 wide receivers at a time, right? Depending on sort of that game or whatever. Brandon Cooks is, in my mind, he's underrated. I mean, I know he got the big money contract and he went to the Rams or whatever. And if you look at his career, right, his rookie year, he had 53 catches. Other than 2019 with the Rams, where he played 14 games, he wasn't really healthy. We know he had the concussion issues. This dude's put up 6 out of the last 7 years has put up over 1,000 yards receiving. Is that the quietest stretch of 1,000-yard receiving years maybe we've heard? And look what he did this year with the quarterback play he had in Houston. I mean, the dude still put up over 1,000 yards, 90 catches, 6 touchdowns, and he can play inside and out like you like. So if you're talking about kind of going, quote, big game hunting, and you want to find a creative way to maybe get that done, he seems like a reasonable option to me. And I like him. I like him as a player. And the injury thing is a myth almost, right? He actually hasn't missed that many games in his career.
I think he missed 1 season. Yeah. We got Chris Jenke coming in saying, in today's NFL, you need legit 4 receivers anyway. And yeah, I don't disagree. And so people are starting to come in with some names. And we're going to get to those names now. But before we do, to me, when I was looking at this free agent class, I was trying to fit players into one of 4 bubbles. The first bubble was go chase an alpha. Christian Kirk, Brandon Cooks via trade, etc. Drafting a guy in the first round. Those to me are like alpha moves. And if we make an alpha move like that, it probably means chopping off or lopping off Cole Beasley, because you want those 3 alphas, Diggs, Davis, whoever that alpha is, to sort of be the 3 guys you funnel your passing game through, plus Dawson Knox.
Right.
So if you go out and chase one of those, it's probably lopping Cole Beasley off your roster. But if you decide to keep Cole Beasley or restructure Cole Beasley, or Cole Beasley takes a pay cut, etc., and you still have Gabriel Davis, Cole Beasley, and Stephon Diggs on your roster, then there's sort of 3 categories I try to fit guys in. Number 1 is I'm looking for a wide receiver 4. Because as Chris Jenke said, you want 4 quality wide receivers in the National Football League. So this is a guy who can play on the boundary, because that's important. Remember 2019, we only had 1 boundary guy and John Brown, and no one else could play on the outside, and we were kind of just slowed up as an offense because of it. You want to have guys with boundary capabilities who can maybe slot inside, but he's a guy who's clearly on the pecking order behind Gabriel Davis, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley. The other one I'm looking for is a gadget guy with return ability, right? If we lose Isaiah McKenzie, you got to find an Isaiah McKenzie replacement. And the third category here was an alpha slot, a guy who maybe you want to, maybe there's a couple of guys in free agency who I can envisioning taking Isaiah McKenzie and Cole Beasley's job, 2 for 1. Everyone knows my boy in free agency. We're going to get to him in a second. So there's that alpha slot category as well. So those are the 4 things that I tried to fit wide receivers in. Like I said, Jakeem Grant's been mentioned a couple of times now, Zach Pascal, etc. Let's start with Christian Kirk, because the big news today, right? I can't believe I forgot this. I can't believe we're 45 minutes in the show, and I'm just now mentioning that last night, Brittany Williams, Josh Allen's girlfriend, posted on Instagram a double date night with Josh Allen and Britt Will and Christian Kirk and his girlfriend. So Josh Allen is out to dinner with Christian Kirk. Now, You can write stories about it. You can tweet about it. We can have a conversation about it. Are the chances that they're probably just acquaintances, friends, etc., know each other from working out, have mutual friends, are friends, etc.? Yeah, that's probably the most likely scenario. But we as Bills fans are probably immediately going to want to go
They're
to,
going to read into it.
is Josh Allen recruiting? Christian Kirk is interesting, right? He would be in the high tier of free agencies. People are like, what do you mean he's a high tier free? Christian Kirk's going to cost you $8 to $10 million AAV, right? Like, to me, he's not a cheap guy. What are your thoughts on Christian Kirk? Because to me, you sign Christian Kirk, you're lopping off Cole Beasley. He's that alpha along the lines of like chasing a Brandon Cook via trade.
Yeah, and I would say he's going to get, I don't know, $8 to $10 million is necessarily getting paid like an alpha, but like it's getting paid a lot. You're getting paid a lot of money, and he's always been like really the number 2 or number 3 guy in the offense, whether it was behind Larry Fitzgerald, DeAndre Hopkins, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the good thing about him coming to the Bills is he wouldn't be the quote alpha, right? He's not going to be ahead of Diggs, but he could be like that guy that competes with Gabriel Davis for targets, right? And it may not matter who's labeled number 2 and number 3. I like Christian Kirk, the player. I am not on the train of paying him $10 million plus a year to come to the Bills. I am not. That's just my personal preference. If the Bills went out and signed Christian Kirk in free agency, I'm not going to be mad. I like the player, but I personally see a lot of other value out there in the wide receiver free agent market that I'd rather go after than giving Christian Kirk $10 million.
To me, if I had a choice between Christian Kirk and restructuring Cole Beasley and bringing Cole Beasley's cap number down and then going out and chasing a bargain bin guy, I'm going to the latter, right? Like, all right, let's get Cole Beasley's cap. Let's cut Cole Beasley's cap number in half. Let's take that $3-4 million. Let's go Byron Pringle, right? Cedric Wilson, James Washington, Keelan Cole, Josh Reynolds. These are all guys who could come in and like, all right, Diggs is your number 1, Davis is your number 2, Beasley is your slot, and then you have James Washington or Josh Reynolds or Byron Pringle or Cedric Wilson house money to sort of move around and play around with as your 4th receiver. And even that wouldn't be guaranteed. You'd probably draft a guy in the middle rounds as well to come in and compete with them and Isaiah Hodgins and Marcus Stevenson. So to me, I would rather pursue a Cedric Wilson or a Byron Pringle, James Washington, Josh Reynolds any day of the week over going over a Christian Kirk. But I understand other people who want to chase that alpha, right? We're in this window. We want to go for it, et cetera, et cetera. But I just mentioned a couple of names here. Let's go through some names. Jamison Crowder is a free agent. If for some reason Cole Beasley doesn't come back, right? He doesn't want to be back with Buffalo because of his issues, et cetera, et cetera. Like he's just like, I want out of Buffalo. I want a fresh start. You know, I'm over this fan base, et cetera. Jamison Crowder could just come in and fill that role. Right?
Exactly.
And so Jamison Crowder would be high in list of free agents only if Cole Beasley is gone. I really like Cedric Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys, right? Shifty before and after the catch. He's got slot production as well as the ability to play on the outside, good hands. It's been 1 year of moderate production. He came on very, very late for them in the season last year. He's missed significant time in the past, but boundary slot flex, he's kind of guy you can kind of play around with. And I know Byron Pringle is another guy, right? Wide receiver 4, inside, outside flex, return ability, special teams ability, someone that the film room is very high on. Who are maybe some other mid-tier free agents that interest you at the wide receiver position?
Yeah, I mean, Pringle interests me the most. Wilson is obviously a nice option. I think a lot of people like him. The guys that I have sort of in my mid-tier, range were Wilson, were Pringle. I have Traquan Smith in that mix as well as a mid-tier option. Above average run blocker, played about even snaps last year between the slot and the perimeter. So he is a guy that has some flexibility. And when asked upon, right, in the absence of Michael Thomas and others, he's been able to produce. I mean, he has been a productive receiver for the Saints. I'm sure they're going to try to bring him back, but Traquan Smith is a guy that I kind of like had my eye on. I like your James Washington option. I don't know if this guy's a mid-tier. He's probably more of a bargain bin, but like, could there be a reunion with Raymond McLeod to be a return man? Maybe.
Oh, don't say that name. I'm not a big fan of Ray Ray.
I know. I'm just kind of joking there. I don't, and this is okay.
Keelan Cole sticks out to me.
Keelan Cole sticks out. D.D. Westbrook as a pure slot.
Yes. That's a bargain bin guy, I think. Yeah,
that's a bargain bin.
He's got return flex. He's got return flex.
I want to ask you. He does, and I want to ask you about this guy because he's coming off a major injury, but has shown the ability to be a real threat on the boundary, and that's DJ Chark.
Mm-hmm.
How much is DJ Chark's fractured ankle going to hurt his value on the free agent market when you have guys like Cedric Wilson and Christian Kirk and Devontae Adams and Juju Smith-Schuster out there? DJ Chark's still going to get paid, right?
His issue might be the saturation in the market, but this is interesting, right? And again, I could be totally wrong, but I was listening to a conversation where they were talking about Drake London's injury, and Drake London, I believe, suffered a fracture as well. And they talked about how a bone fracture is actually like preferable to like ligament damage and cartilage damage. So the fact that it is a fracture might actually help DJ Chark in terms of, his recovery and team's comfortability with him once they get the medicals and stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, to me, he's a one-trick pony, but he's a really high ceiling one-trick pony.
Well, that's the thing. He's like the guys that the people that wanted Will Fuller a couple years back, right, as a one-trick pony,
who's also a free agent, who's
also a free agent. Like DJ Chark maybe is that guy now, right? That's younger and has had like a freak
I heard
injury.
he could still get $10 million.
And I wouldn't do that,
I wouldn't do that either. But like if musical chairs, right? Like, we're a week or two into free agency and nobody's offered DJ Chark a contract. Brandon Beane, hey, 1 year, $4 million, prove it deal. So if you, again, we talk about a lot of these guys and, the Bills can't afford this guy or the Bills, but there is something to be said about, hey, the music stops playing. There are going to be some dudes standing there without a chair.
Yep.
And when they're standing there without a chair, Buffalo's going to look really intriguing to them because of who's playing quarterback and because of how good the football team is. So something to be said about that for sure. Like I said, Keelan Cole really interests me, can play inside, outside, smooth route runner. He doesn't do anything special, quicker than he is fast, but he's also a return man. He's got return capabilities. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Braxton Berrios. So rumors are he wants $8 to $10 million. If you can get him in the $6 million range, I'd even be willing to go as high as $8 million range. I'm confident in Braxton Berrios' ability to be a young player who develops with Josh Allen, right? And Merck has made this comment before on Twitter, one of our favorite follows on Twitter. Merck, I made a comment about Brandon Cooks today, and he's like, nah, go get a younger guy to go and grow and develop with Josh Allen. That's Braxton Berrios. Mid-20s. He's a guy who can find holes in zone coverage, just like Cole Beasley. He's a guy who can create separation underneath, just like Isaiah McKenzie. He's an elite return man. He can do the gadget stuff that McKenzie can do. Does he give you a lot of downfield production? No. Can he beat single coverage? No. But he can do and he can work in the slot and he can fill so many roles. Slot receiver, gadget guy, returns, etc. I'd be willing to give him $6 to $8 million to do all those things because I do truly believe that if you bring Braxton Berrios in, you can let Isaiah McKenzie walk and you can cut Cole Beasley, no problem. And then you can go out and you can either sign a Brian Pringle or you can draft a guy in the somewhere anywhere between the second and the third round, fourth round, and you could have yourself a completely filled up receiving core.
Yep.
I really do have that much faith in Braxton Berrios. He's one of my, favorite targets. Claude Puy says priced himself out. Josh Reynolds is so confusing, man. Right. Cause like he knows Cromer from LA, inside, outside flex, quicker than he is fast, but still like he's a guy, produced in LA on his rookie deal, went to Tennessee, bust, cut, went to Detroit, got in a little bit of a rhythm with Jared Goff. To me, Josh Reynolds probably ends up back in Detroit, and he's probably not the first guy the Bills call. And I think he signs relatively quickly back with Detroit. But if for some reason he's still sitting out there on the market, I really like Josh Reynolds. Him and James Washington down the field, one-trick pony. So, just super interesting. Russell Gage is another guy I didn't really mention. I'm not so high on Russell Gage, but hey, he's another number 4 sort of replacement.
Someone mentioned DeMarcus Robinson. I like that option as well. He's had a role with the Chiefs, over 100 snaps. He's been their wide receiver 4. I'm sorry, 110 snaps in the slot, played over 800 snaps total.
Yeah.
He'd be like a nice chess piece to have and he would still be probably, a wide receiver 4, but
it's just, but that's what I'm saying, like clearly defined wide receiver 4. He ain't threatening Gabe Davis. He ain't threatening Stephon Diggs. He ain't threatening Cole Beasley, but he won't embarrass himself when he's out there on the football field. Damier Byrd is another guy that I like kind of in that role. Played with Chicago this year. I've always liked Damier Byrd and his downfield speed. Some other guys, Jakeem Grant.
Yep.
If we lose out, and I saw him in the comment section earlier. Someone was, I think it was Kenny Regelman, was really bringing up Jakeem Grant. He would be honestly an upgrade over Isaiah McKenzie. Khalif Raymond is another guy.
Yep.
McKenzie replacement, can do some returns, etc. So if you have to replace Isaiah McKenzie, Jakeem Grant, Khalif Raymond fit that bill. If you're looking for maybe a special teamer guy, like a wide receiver 5 to come in and sort of compete a la Jake Kumaro, I like Trent Sherfield from the 49ers. Always have, as like a wide receiver 5'6", 4-phase special teamer. And last on my list is Alex Erickson from the Houston Texans. All he is a kick and punt returner. Like, he's contributing nothing else, but he's a kick and punt returner who you can count on. So Alex Erickson is on my list. The Buffalo Bills are looking for one of those. Albert Wilson was another guy I had, but he's sort of aging out. The RFA market is interesting, and I've seen. Oh, sorry, Damier Byrd or Damier Byrd. I'm very sure it was Damier. I'm not good at pronouncing things. The RFA market is interesting, right? Alan Lazard, Jacoby Myers, probably untouchable in the RFA market. But some other guys who might be more touchable. It sounded weird, but
who's touchable out there? Come on, tell me.
Preston Wilson from the Miami Dolphins. Massive list and history of injuries. Boundary possession receiver. Go up and get a guy. Deontay Harris from the Saints is a McKenzie replacement. He can also do returns. He's an electrifying smaller player. Gunnar Olszewski from the Patriots is an RFA. And I really like Jalen Guyton, a deep speed boundary kind of guy from the Chargers. Now, most of those guys probably go back to their original teams being RFAs, but if one of those guys slide through, I really like them. I also like Ashton Doolin as a 5'6" receiver who's 4-phase special teamer from the Colts. So if any of those guys slip through the cracks, I just want to mention them, because if any of those guys slip through the cracks, I think that they'd be super interesting. But obviously a ton of names that we've didn't mention, didn't get to, etc. There's so many. Someone mentioned John Brown earlier. I mean, 1 year, $800K. If he's willing to come into training camp and compete, I mean, see what he's still got. I wouldn't mind it, but I mean, no guarantees. And he's certainly not someone who I'm penciling in pen onto the roster if I'm signing a guy like John Brown. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't not interest me. All right. Tight ends is interesting.
Yeah.
We were having a conversation in the Cover One chat, and I posted one of my favorite memes from Arrest Development in regards to the tight end class. And I want to sort of like share that meme for a second, because there are a ton of tight ends in this class, right? Like Evan Ingram, David Njoku, OJ Howard. You can even throw like
not
Mo
even
Ali
bothering.
Cox into
Not
this
even
list.
bothering.
I'm not bothering with any of them, because they're going to get paid, and they're going to get paid not on anything they have produced, but they're going to get paid on their potential. And it's like that old Arrest Development meme, right? Where it's like, hey, they're sitting in marriage counseling, Tobias and his wife. Hey, did it work out for those people? No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but might just work for us. That's literally most of this tight end class, right? Like, oh, we're going to get David Njoku to meet his potential, so we're going to give him $8 million AAV. I'm not about that life, right? Like, I want a second tight end. I want a veteran tight end and a rookie, but I'm seeing some names mentioned, and we'll get to it. Can we start with Gronk? I mean, I have no interest in Gronk. Like, I don't think Gronk has any interest here, but what do you think on Gronk?
I mean, if the Bills sign him, I'm not going to be bad at it. Like, the first thing you think of is, like, obviously he's going to sign for 1 year. He's going to try to go somewhere where he can get a ring, but like, would he really go somewhere, without having the sort of established chemistry? And that was with Tom Brady. I don't know, man. I don't know. He's already retired once.
Apparently the Bills had conversations with him last year. Like,
I mean, it's not a terrible, like, it's not like Gronk's going to come in and he's going to be like, oh, I have to be an alpha. Cause like he's shared snaps with Cameron Brate. So it's not like it's not like he has to be the guy, but like he's a better tight end than Cameron Brate, like overall. So like what kind of role would he really have with the Bills? And that's where I kind of, when we start talking about guys like Ingram and guys like that, I just kind of I don't even really consider it, right? I'm looking for more of the guy who's going to be more like kind of like with Singletary in the running back room. I'm looking for a guy who's going to more be a complement to Knox, and that's a compliment to Dawson Knox, right? Like a year ago, we were thinking, well, could we bring in someone who could maybe be a T1, but also like maybe also be a guy that like no, like I want a guy like Knox is the guy, right? He is TE1, and I want a guy who's going to be a nice compliment to him now, and so we can see his trajectory continue on the path it's on. So guys like Gronk really like it may sound dumb, but it's like guys like Gronk and Evan Ingram, like they don't interest me for the way this team is made up right now.
A bunch of different names, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. The three guys that they did a great job in the film room of breaking down, Eric and Anthony and Kendall did a great job of breaking down Will Disley from the Seahawks, Ross Dwelly from the 49ers, and Durham Smythe from the Dolphins. All guys who I think should be on the list. I've seen Mo Alley Cox mentioned in here. I have also seen Tyler Conklin mentioned in here. I'm going to start with, first of all, there are two tight ends in this class, in this free agent class, that have caught touchdown passes from Josh Allen in the 2017 Reese Senior Bowl, Tyler Conklin and Durham Smythe. Those are my number one and number two tight end wants in the free agent class. I think Tyler Conklin's going to get paid. He had a really good year.
I thought so too.
In Minnesota. I think he's going to get paid. I think he might be out of our price range, but I would really love Tyler Conklin. So I'm maneuvering towards Durham Smythe, right?
Yep.
Not a sexy guy, but he's sort of like, we wanted Kyle Rudolph last year, right? Inline, 6'7", 250-pound guy. He can block. You could play 12 personnel with him. You know, he played in a lot of those two tight end packages in Miami last year. He can catch you some things here and there, can be a red zone target. Nothing special, but he's just going to play off Dawson Knox, right?
Yep.
Durham Smythe is a guy that I really like in that role. And then there are some other guys, but who do you have, as maybe some other guys other than Durham Smythe and Ty Conklin?
I like Ty Conklin. He kind of be the top of my wish list. Ian Thomas is a guy that I think could be, maybe a mid-tier to more bargain bin type guy. He's a good run blocker. The Panthers obviously invested in Tommy Tremble, but by the same token, they did trade away Manhurst. So are they going to be more pressed to bring back a guy like Ian Thomas as their TE2? Maybe. But if Ian Thomas is looking to go to a better team, he might be interested in going to the Bills. So that's a guy.
Familiarity with Joe Brady?
Right. Familiarity with Joe Brady. That's a good point. So Ian Thomas is a guy that kind of maybe stood out to me as more of that mid-tier bargain bin type. Hayden Hurst, the Falcons just invested
Hayden Hurst, a good one.
I mean, the Falcons just invested big time in Kyle Pitts, obviously. Hayden Hurst. Last year, before Kyle Pitts, like Hayden Hurst was a pretty good tight end for the Falcons, like in a team that was kind of in disarray. And he even caught I think a touchdown or two this past year. I think he's good. We all remember him from that long touchdown he had against us in that Ravens game a couple years back. Randy would probably like him. He's a South Carolina guy. I like Hayden Hurst as a kind of like maybe a bargain bin kind of value type guy. And then I'm going deep into the bargain bin here, just making some real connect the dots, like loose connections here with Johnny Munt from the Rams coming off a torn ACL, drafted him in 2017. Cromer has coached him on the O-line, graded out well as a run blocker. Even though from a size perspective, you wouldn't think that he's only like 230, 240, but he would be like bargain bin type guy. And like, so for me, it's Thomas and it's Hurst, separate from the guys you already mentioned, like Conklin and Dwelly.
Yeah, I mean, Fluffy Panda comes in and says Mike Gesicki. Like we mentioned this at the top of the show. If we sign Mike Gesicki, we'll sit here and devote an entire podcast drooling over it, talking about it. But like, I'm not going to sit here and try to prognosticate it because I just don't think it's realistic.
Excuse me. Yes, this is correct. I got the wrong guys, but I knew that the Panthers had they had moved on from him. So
Mo Alley Cox is a name to mention. I think Mo Alley Cox is going to get paid. He's got good hands, yards after catch guy. He's good at exploiting zone coverage, good run blocker. Like he's the dream number 2 tight end, right? someone's probably going to try to see a number 1 tight end in him. He's never had a high volume role. They're going to want to see if they can tap that potential. I think Mo Alley Cox gets like 6-year AAV, 6 million.
I'm not
AAV,
interested in that.
and I'm just not interested in that. And he's also very stiff. Like if you watch him play, like I like him, but he's stiff as a board. Gerald Everett, reliable hands. He's got that raw athleticism. He's still kind of got a thin frame, even though he's a respectable blocker. Will Disley, I think, is actually going to get paid, believe it or not. Like I think you could probably see Will Disley push 4 million AAV. Don't know if I'm willing to invest that. Hayden Hurst could push 4 million AAV. Like I got Will Disley, Hayden Hurst, and Durham Smythe all sort of tucked together in a little, pouch there where I think like it wouldn't surprise me if they get 4 million a year because that's just free agency is wild like that, right?
Throw Ian Thomas into that group too, probably.
And so Ross Dwelly is a guy that you fall back on. Maybe you can get him for 2-3 million. And another guy that I really want to fall back on, gruesome injury last year. This is a guy who it's weird. Time is a flat circle, right? We're always talking about the same guys year after year after year. Max Williams was a guy that
he was on my list.
Beat the drum for.
Great run blocker.
First year we did a podcast, I was on the Max Williams train, and he ended up going to the Arizona Cardinals and had a really solid 2 years there. Gruesome injury that he's coming off of, but really solid run blocker, really good hands, really good short area receiver,
huge
big dude,
guy.
Big dude. So I'd
be okay with that.
Williams for cheap coming off that injury, draft a guy too. Because
what would be your ceiling kind of AAV for a guy like Max Williams? I'm thinking like 5 million maximum.
4.
Yeah.
Here's
4 to 5. Yeah.
Here's what I would do. I'd probably sign a tight end to a 3-year deal, and I would probably make it a relatively low cap hit in the first year and easy to get out of after the first year.
Give him the Tyler Kroft contract.
So something that's easy to get out of, but also gives them some money. So it looks like it's a good deal. But I mean, once you get past, Conklin, Alley Cox, Gerald Everett, Will Disley, Hayden Hurst, Durham Smythe, Max Williams, Ross Dwelly. Now we're talking Jeff Swaim, Nicole Pruitt, Anthony Ferkser. I just named 3 Titans. Jesse James, Jacob Hollister. Yep. You're starting to really scrape the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. So I really hope that, one of these guys, Conklin, Disley, Hurst, Smythe, Max Williams, Ross Dwelly, I really hope one of these guys ends up as a Buffalo Bill, because I would like to see us more 12 personnel flexible. OJ Howard falls into that list of I'm
not interested on it.
The effort isn't there on every play. The ceiling is there. Someone's gonna pay him for that ceiling that he's probably never gonna reach. So don't get me wrong. Again, if the Buffalo Bills sign OJ Howard, we'll sit here and we'll have a fun little podcast talking about it. But trying to talk ourselves into what he can be, but there's not something that I think is worthy of a conversation until
it doesn't seem like a Bean type of signing to me. It just doesn't. I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean, we could go out and sign him first day and I'll look like an idiot, but it just doesn't feel like the Brendan Bean type of guy to me.
And this is another thing too. Do you think one of these tight ends will lose out on musical chairs? Yeah, of course. Right. Because there's a ton of them, especially at the top.
Someone
end.
Always will. Yeah.
So some of these bargaining guys might lose out. But here's the thing. We talked about musical chairs at quarterback. We talk about musical chairs at wide receiver. We talk about musical chairs at tight end. At some point, the Bills just gotta go find their guy and get their guy, right? You can only play musical chairs at so many positions, knowing that you have the draft to fall back on, because you only have so many picks in the first half of the draft that you assume are going to contribute right away. You're not banking on a 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick to contribute right away, unless you're Brandon Bean, who drafts developmental guys in the 2nd round. You're probably hoping your 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round pick contribute right away. So that's only 3 guys in the draft that you're realistically thinking are going to contribute right away. So you're going to have to patch these holes in free agency, go find some guys that you like. You can only play musical chairs at so many positions. Here's a position that I would like to see the Buffalo Bills actually make a priority. And it sounds weird. Offensive tackle, right? Tommy Doyle is still, despite the fact that he was their tight end by the end of the year last year, still very raw. And you saw what happened to the musical chairs that happened to that offensive line last year when Deion Dawkins was out with COVID or Spencer Brown was out with COVID. Shifting Darrell Williams to right tackle, Spencer Brown to left tackle, all these different changes that were made. It got old. It got tiring. It got crazy. It threw off the offensive line. It threw off the rhythm of the offense. If I'm the Buffalo Bills, there's not a ton on the market, so it might be hard to get them. I'm looking for a veteran swing tackle. I got I got 3 guys highlighted that I really like, and then some other guys, but one of my favorite free agents in this class is Cornelius Lucas of the Washington Commanders. Solid pass protector, doesn't embarrass himself in the running game. Is he perfect? Does he have like a ton of positive plays? Is he going to push the pile, et cetera, et cetera? Is he some all elite world beating offensive tackle? No. Is he a serviceable left right flex offensive tackle? He sure is. I would really like the Buffalo Bills to pursue a guy like Cornelius Lucas. I also got Jaron Christian from the Houston Texans, and maybe a reunion with Ty and Seki on my list of guys I would like to possibly see the Buffalo Bills pursue. There's some other guys, David Quessenberry, Riley Reif, Shooks Okafor, Mike Reimers. I'm not as high on those guys. Jermaine Ifedi. I'm not as high on those guys. And again, it's a luxury. Like Bills R Electric comes in and says, veteran swing time would be nice, but you might have the money to sign one. And I agree. So it'll be really super interesting to see how the Buffalo Bills. This is what I want an upgrade from Bobby Hart. This is, I also got Tyrell Crosby and Sam Tevy as 2 sort of bottom feeders, both guys who missed 2021 due to injury. I was really high on Tyrell Crosby coming out of the draft. Versatile guy, could play all over the offensive line. Sam Tevy tore his ACL, played left tackle, right tackle for the Chargers for years. Wasn't very good, but he did it. So Riley Reif, towards the end of his career, you might be able to convince him to come here as a swing. He might still try to find a starting opportunity elsewhere. So it'll be super interesting. And, Mike Remmers is a guy they could fall back on, the Carolina connection that they seem to have there. Remmers was a guy for them back in the day in Carolina. He's been with the Chiefs the last couple of years as their sort of swing offensive lineman. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on offensive tackle?
I mean, you hit a lot of guys. I'll just add 2 names to the mix because I don't think this is one that we, like you said, there's not a ton of options out there. Dennis Kelly from Green Bay could play left tackle, right tackle, could even go inside if you need to. He's kind of late in his career. He's 32 years old. But as a guy that, as like a bargain bin, I would say he only made $1.3 million last year. So you could pay a guy like Dennis Kelly to come in and really be your swing tackle and play in the interior in a pinch if he needed to, as a bargain bin type of guy. And then the other guy, this guy might kind of be my Roderick Johnson of this year, and that's Joseph Noteboom from
He's gonna get paid. He gonna get paid.
He might.
I think he gonna get. I mean, we also thought Roger Johnson was gonna get paid. So
right. Graded out really well as a pass blocker. Had an over 80 point something grade in about 300 snaps with the Rams.
Yeah.
PFF's projecting him to get around $4 million a year.
Bro,
will he get more than that? Will he get less?
Some of their projections, I think, are just absolute horseshit.
I will say this though. I think some of PFF's salary projections are more accurate, or will be more accurate than Spot Track's. I don't know what kind of money Noteboom's gonna get, but if he is in that $4 to $5 million a year range, I'd pay for that. I'd pay for that. So those are just 2 other names. Dennis Kelly would be kind of more of the bargain bin guy, and we'll see what Noteboom gets. But to me, he'd be like a mid-tier right now. I mean, we'll see what kind of money he gets.
I think I really do think Cornelius Lucas could be this year's Roderick Johnson. I also think Jaron Christian could be this year's Roderick Johnson. I even have some high hopes for Tyrell Crosby. I don't know that injury. It was a grade 1 like hamstring tear that he had or something like that he was coming back from. So, but he missed the whole season, so he should be good now. Roger Johnson with the Chiefs, by the way, that stung. I googled him today. I googled him. Jordan Mills. Jason Taylor says, "What's Jordan Mills up to?" He was with the Saints last year, and I actually think he played some games because of COVID. So he's still kicking it. Kicking it now into the interior of the offensive line. Conversation can be had, right? I think we can all agree Ryan Bates. We all want Ryan Bates to be our starting left guard. Every Bills. I don't think you'll find a single Bills fan out there on this planet who'll be like, "Whoa, I don't want Ryan Bates to be my starting left guard next year." I think everyone does, right? So right guard then becomes the issue. Darrell Williams, you're paying him for like a right tackle. Can you maybe trade Darrell Williams to a team that needs a right tackle? Convince them, get maybe a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick for him. Do you get Darrell Williams to take a pay cut to bring him down to more of a guard salary? Does Darrell Williams accept the pay cut? If he doesn't, do you cut Darrell Williams and save that $8 million with the post June 1st and then take that $8 million and maybe reinvest it? If Darrell Williams is back next year, we're talking swing interior offensive lineman, the lower tier free agents. If Darrell Williams isn't back next year, then we can start to have the conversation. Do we chase a whale at offensive guard? Do we go after a mid-tier guy? Some of the whales, obviously Brandon Scherf is like the whale of all whales. I don't think that's a realistic option for the Buffalo Bills. But hey, then again, the Chiefs signed Joe Thuney last year. And what did Brandon Beane say? Our number one priority is to protect Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Maybe the Buffalo Bills go and pull a Kansas City Chiefs like they did with Joe Thuney last year and go out and try to pay Brandon Scherf. Other guys on that list, James Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
Zone blocking guy
my
from
God.
the Bears.
Yeah. He was like dream scenario, right?
James Daniel is a guy who could potentially slide into center over time too, because he's got that center flex. Austin Corbett, that familiarity with Aaron Cromer from his time in LA, Alex Kappa from the Buccaneers, our trade deadline sweetheart, Andrew Norwell, our free agency of 2 years ago sweetheart, Mark Glowinski of the Colts, Ted Karras of the Patriots, are all what I consider mid to high level free agents. There are some other ones like Connor Williams that I didn't mention as well. Laken Tomlinson. That's such a run heavy offense in San Francisco. I question his ability to block true pass sets. I don't even have Laken Tomlinson.
And he's really left guard only too.
So I personally don't have Laken Tomlinson. A couple people have now mentioned it. I don't have Laken Tomlinson on my board. I don't think he can.
James Daniels to me is the best top tier fit in my opinion. From the Bears,
I like Alex Kappa too.
Yeah,
Austin
I like
Corbett.
Alex Kappa too.
There's a chance we could chase any of these whales, and I think the Buffalo Bills fan base would probably be happy with any of them. But now we get to some of these lower tier guys. Now, got it on some good authority. Eric Turner reached out and he heard from some people that the Buffalo Bills may have some interest in a guy like Austin Blythe. He was supposed to be the starting center for the Kansas City Chiefs last year until he suffered a sports hernia injury, missed the entire season, opened the door for Creed Humphrey to just walk in and start right away as a rookie. Formerly of the LA Rams, where he played both right guard and center. So he's a swing interior offensive lineman. You can probably get him for like a Spencer Long, $2-3 million type of deal. Austin Blythe, if I had to pick any player in free agency that I was convinced would be a Buffalo Bill on the first day of free agency, number one with a bullet would be Austin Blythe. Number one with a bullet is Austin Blythe. In the Austin Blythe mold, Austin Reeder, formerly of the Dolphins, Chris Reed of the Colts, Michael Schofield of the Chargers, Ode Abushi.
We talked about him last year too.
Ode Abushi is another guy we talked about last year at the Chargers, towards ACL midseason. Even a reunion, bottom of the barrel, a reunion with Jamil Douglas. These are all guys. AJ Cann of the Jaguars, Trey Turner, Carolina connections of the Steelers. So there are some names. I think Cann and Turner are still going to get 4 to 6. They'll get the John Feliciano deals, right? AJ Cann, Trey Turner. They'll get the John Feliciano money. But below even John Feliciano money, I think you're going to get Austin Blythe, Austin Reeder, Chris Reed, Schofield, Abushi, Jamil Douglas. Like, those are the guys. I want like 2 of them. Like, give me Austin Blythe and Austin Reeder. Give me Austin Blythe and Ode Abushi. Give me Austin Blythe and Michael Schofield. Give me Austin Blythe and Jamil Douglas. Notice how I mentioned Austin Blythe with every single one of those. I really am a big fan of Austin Blythe. I really like AJ Cann as well. Really good size. I know Randy's going to like him because he was a Gamecock. Really good pass protector. He struggles in run blocking, but like, if I have to choose between a run blocker and a pass blocker with Josh Allen, I'm choosing the pass blocker, right? Like, I'm not choosing the guy where in the description of his positives and negatives, it says not great in natural pass sets. Like, that's the dude I'm probably going to be passing on in free agency. I'd rather hope you can get some push from guys in the run game, but no, you're going to get pass protection from them in the Ike Butker type of mold. I also wouldn't mind bringing Ike Butker back. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on some of these bottom of the barrel guards or these lower mid-tier guards?
Yeah, I mean, that becomes a volume game, I think. Another guy I kind of had starred was, I don't even know how to say his name, Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders. Obviously the Bills, have a history of taking a cast off from them in the past with Feliciano. He graded out as their best guard for PFF last year. That's above guys like Leatherwood, obviously, who was a high draft pick, and others. But, he's got experience. He's played in over 50 games in his career. He's made about 15 starts in his career. Right guard player. So if you're looking for that and you're looking to potentially kind of figure out what you want to do with Darrell Williams in the future, bargain bin type guy, right? So he's just another name to add in the mix that I like his size and I think his experience. Maybe he's kind of like the Forrest Lamp of this year for right guard.
Yeah, and Chris Jenke says Butker probably starts the year on the physically unable to perform. Jamil Douglas and Forrest Lamp are both guys who could come back. I'm not saying like they're just bodies, right? The Bills are very shallow on bodies. Like there's not a lot. I think I would rather feel more comfortable with Jamil Douglas as one of the bottom half of the roster guys, a guy you keep on your practice squad, break glass in case of emergency, as opposed to like a UDFA or like a 7th round pick. Like if I had to choose last year, like if we still had Jack Anderson last year and Jamil Douglas like late in the year, and like we were just ravaged by injuries, and someone approached me and said, "Would you rather start Jamil Douglas or Jack Anderson in the pinch?" I would start Jamil Douglas. So I'd still you still like to have those guys knowing like the injuries. No Quentin Spain at all.
That's
but
not
you still like
happen.
I think Ike Bucker is the perfect sign 1 year, $800K stash on the PUP. Have yourself a nice little option. Have yourself a nice little option mid-season. Like that's Ike Bucker is because I mean, where's he going to go? Right? Just stay where you're comfortable here in Buffalo. Mr. comes in and says trade Ford for anything. I think Cody Ford makes his way to training camp, and I think maybe the Buffalo Bills trade him somewhere for like a 6th, 7th round pick, a conditional pick. Maybe someone who liked him in the draft wants to get their hands on him, and the Buffalo Bills are like, cool, let's part ways. But there was another name in free agency, a guy who fell flat in his face that I really liked in the draft, Will Hernandez.
Mm-hmm.
But the more I looked at Will Hernandez, the more I was like, yeah, that's just Cody Ford. Like, it's just Cody Ford.
Kind of seemed that way.
So, a guy like Will Hernandez is sort of like a reclamation project. So I'm not leaning there either. So that brings us to the last half of the show here. What I want to do is a snake draft.
Yep.
So me and you are going to do a snake draft. It's going to be 6 rounds. And I've decided we are going to eliminate the high tier free agent. And we're going to do 3 mid tier. And we're going to do 3 bargain bin or low level free agents. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is Dave and I are going to snake draft free agents. We have to take 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 tackle, and 1 guard. 3 of them mid-tier, 3 of them bargain bin. So we're going to try to whittle these lists down as to whom we can take. We could take the guys in any order. So Dave can take a tackle first. He can take a quarterback first, whatever he wants to do. And then once he takes a guy, I cannot take them. Do you want first pick or do you want second 2? I'll let you choose what you want here.
I'll go second.
You can go second 2. All right. I'm going to get things kicked off, and I want to make sure that I get my guy that I really do think the Buffalo Bills are going to sign. So he might be a low-level free agent, but I'm going to go with a low-level free agent here to start. I'm taking Austin Blythe off the board. Interior offensive lineman, swing guy. He can play left guard, center, right guard. I really like Austin Blythe, so I'm going with Austin Blythe with my first pick.
Hey, I'm penning him in for you at guard. I want to ask you, you're going to have to, based on the projections, are you going to consider Berrios a top tier? I think you have
I would consider him mid-tier, a high mid-tier.
Right,
I'll consider him a high mid-tier.
All right. I'm not going that direction anyway, because he wouldn't be the top of my mid-tier. Well, mid to top tier. I'm going to go strictly true mid-tier. The guy that's really becoming my sort of favorite and a lot of people's favorite for mid-tier wide receiver. I'm going to take Byron Pringle with my first pick.
All right. Pringle off the board.
Receiver. Yep.
I realize I probably should have made one for you here.
Yeah.
I'm like writing it down as I go along.
Yep. Okay. So now I pick again,
you pick
right?
Again.
Okay. Oh, this is, you know what? I'm going to go with, who am I going to go with here? This is tough, man. Let's see. I will go with, damn, these guys are too top tier. You kind of screwed me here. I'm going to go with,
they can be, if they're upper echelon, mid tier, top tier, I'll let it slide. All
right. You know what I'm going to go with, just because it was a guy that I believe is mid-tier. I'm going to take my tackle here. I'm going to go with Noteboom tackle.
Okay. Joseph Noteboom. I like it. I personally think he goes somewhere to start. I don't know if you're going to be able to get him swing tackle money, but if the Buffalo Bills can I mean, Noteboom could even kick inside and play guard too. So I mean, the Buffalo Bills could even consider him to just come in and just be a competition piece somewhere. Like we talk about Austin Corbett, like Joseph Noteboom could probably come in and compete at guard and start at guard for this football team. So a guy like Joseph Noteboom is important. I was gonna take a tackle my next pick and just really shore up my trenches, but since you just took it off the lineman and a wide receiver, I'm gonna move on to another position here.
Okay.
I'm gonna go quarterback. I'm gonna take Kyle Allen off the board. I'm gonna have him as a low tier free agent. So I'm going value shopping early. I'm saving my big bucks for later. I'm going Kyle Allen to the Washington Commanders.
We're allowing RFAs.
Yeah,
okay.
He is.
Okay.
He could end up being a UFA at the end of this, but
that's fair.
Friends with Josh Allen. They live together in the offseason. They rent that house together. They work out with Jordan Palmer. He was a really high ceiling high school recruit, kind of floated around between Texas A&M and Houston. Has that Carolina Panther connection, has started some games in this league, is a scrappy guy who can stopgap you, maybe win you a game or two if he's asked to start, come in the middle of a game and finish it off for you. So I'm going to go with Kyle Allen here as my quarterback.
All right. You pick again then.
All right. My next pick is going to be J.D. McKissick of the Washington Commanders. Okay. I'm going to take, by the end of this thing, I'm going to take 3 Washington Commanders.
All right. So Kyle Allen, we're considering bargain bin, right?
Yeah. And I'm also considering McKissick low end as well.
Are you you're considering your first 3 picks all bargain bin then, right? Blake,
yeah.
McKissick. Okay. And I guess I'd consider my first 2 both
mid-tier. I guess I'll call Kyle Allen mid-tier since I'm going to take 4 bottom bin guys. I just love bargain shopping. I got a problem.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So I'll say both of the guys I've taken so far have been mid-tier. So we'll say those are mid-tier. I will say, since I need to take a bargain bin guy, give me Hayden Hurst, bargain bin tight end.
All right. Hayden Hurst.
Randy will like it.
Bottom bin. Okay. Got it locked in. So you got Pringle as a mid-tier and Noteboom as a mid-tier?
Yeah. I guess I would consider Noteboom. I would consider Noteboom a mid-tier. We can consider Pringle. We'll see how it shakes out. But for now, I'll consider a mid-tier.
And then you got one more pick here.
All right, I got one more pick. So I've got my tight end, tackle, and wide receiver. Let me go with okay. Let me go with bargain bin. Let me go with bargain bin guard Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders.
All right.
He's definitely bargain bin.
I didn't even have him on my list of guys there, so it's
I mean, because I really want James Daniels, but that's obviously top tier. Can't do that.
All right, so I'm up now. I still have wide receiver, tight end, and offensive tackle. So my next is going to be a low tier, or I'm sorry, it's going to be a mid tier. I'm going with my boy. I'm taking Braxton Berrios here. I'm locking Braxton Berrios down as a mid tier. Give him, if he falls into that $6 to $8 million range, hopefully you can convince him to come in. He replaces Cole Beasley in the slot. He can do some of the. Is he as good as Cole Beasley beating zone? No, but he can sort of recreate a little bit of what Cole Beasley can do. He could do what Isaiah McKenzie can do. He can do the gadget stuff. He can return kicks. He can return punts, and he's right in that age range where he can grow and he can develop with Josh Allen over the next 3 to 5 years. So I'm going to go with Braxton Berrios, and then I'm going to move over to tight ends. And I am going to take Max Williams. I'm going to go with Max Williams. I'm going to go with him as a mid-tier guy. I think that, he's a guy you could probably get in the $4 to $6 million range on a 1-year deal. He comes in. If he's obviously healthy, passes the medicals, he provides you a solid run blocking. In that 12 personnel, he's got good hands, good short area receiver, just a dependable guy. That's not Tommy Sweeney that you can actually have active on game days and runs on 12 personnel with. So I'm going to go with Max Williams here.
All right. I guess I have my last 2 picks here. So I'm going to go with Mitchell Trubisky as my quarterback. Bring him back.
Money Mooch.
And at running back, which is my last pick, this is tough because I like a couple of the guys left here, but I'm gonna go with, man, it's either between Damian Williams or Jerick McKinnon. I don't know. I already got a Chief, so I'll go away from McKinnon. I'll take Damian Williams.
All right, we got Damian Williams on the list. All right, so that leaves me with the final pick, offensive tackle. I'm gonna go with Cornelius Lucas. I'm gonna make it the trifecta of the Washington Commanders to the Buffalo Bills. I really like the depth of that football team. I like some of the depth players of that football team. So I'm gonna go with Cornelius Lucas to round out my team. Left tackle, right tackle, flex, sort of the new age Ty and Secchi, the Ty and Secchi for a new generation here in Buffalo. Because I just don't like the way that anytime a tackle gets hurt, we got to reshuffle the entire offensive line. So my team consists of at quarterback, Kyle Allen, at running back, J.D. McKissick, at wide receiver, Braxton Berrios, tight end, Max Williams, tackle, Cornelius Lucas, and guard, Austin Blythe. Your roster consists of Mitchell Trubisky, Damian Williams, Byron Pringle, Hayden Hurst, Joseph Noteboom, and I don't even know how to pronounce that last guy's name. You have to do it for me.
Yeah, I think just looking at these rosters that my guy's like salary is going to be like $15 million less than yours. I mean, like combined salaries is going to be like way less. I almost want to
are fans of Dollar Tree or Dollar General.
I almost want to go back and pick a different guard just so like somebody
go for it. I will allow it. I will allow it.
All right, let me see. I mean, I don't even know. Let's see. Kappa's too high tier, probably. I don't know, man. Everyone else is too high tier, I think. I don't know. AJ Can maybe isn't.
Yeah, I'll give you AJ Can.
All right, give me AJ Can. We'll go with him.
All right. So it's Mitch Trubisky, Damian Williams, Byron Pringle, Hayden Hurst, Joseph Noteboom, and AJ Can. All right.
Just for Randy, I got 2 Gamecocks in there. Okay. Like let's just do that.
So that'll do it for tonight's show. We obviously walk through like every single position group on offense. We're going to be doing the same thing on Thursday, just with defense. So we talk about edge rushers, defensive tackles, linebackers, cornerback, safeties. Maybe we'll throw some punters in there. We might throw some punters in there as well. So that'll do it for tonight. If you are listening to the show live still, thank you. We appreciate it. Smash that like button, share this show with anyone you think may like it. If you're watching on demand on YouTube, leave a comment, smash the like, and leave a comment in the comment section. We'll make sure to get to the comment section over the course of the week and respond to any comments you leave in the comment section. And if you are listening to this on audio, whether it's Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Spotify, etc., make sure you are giving us a review and a like there as well. Always appreciate it. And we got one more episode of free agency. Then we have combine coverage for like 3 shows.
Yep.
And then it's back to free agency. And then it's draft.
Love it.
So we got a busy off season for you. The real stuff is starting now. We've deconstructed the roster. Now we're theoretically talking about how to build it back up. Then we're going to react. And then we're going to build it back up to the draft again. And then we're going to react to the draft.
It's a good thing we got 2 shows a week, man.
Yeah. And then who knows what bullshit we're going to talk about after the draft is over. So we'll think of something.
We will.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.